The intruder. The storm came like an angry god that Monday night. I'd been home since 8, fresh off my shift and settled in for what had become my nightly ritual since the divorce, gaming with my buddies online, the empty house just a shell around me. Not that I minded much. When your life empties out, you fill the spaces however you can. The weather folks had been yammering about flash floods all day, but around here, they cry wolf every time the sky darkens. I paid it no mind until 11, when the wind slammed against my window like a giant hand. The whole house shuddered and creaked, as if telling me it couldn't take much more of this abuse. I lifted my headset, hearing the deluge hammering down outside, the wood around me groaning in protest. I turned back to my screen to tell the guys what was happening, but before I could get the words out, everything flickered, the lights, my screen, the whole damn house, then snapped back on. I was still connected to Discord, so I started to ask if they could hear me. That's when it all went black. Total darkness, the kind that swallows you whole, where your hand in front of your face might as well be a mile away. I fumbled for my phone, clicked on its pitiful little light, and made my way downstairs to check the situation. Rain battered the windows like it had a grudge. Through the watery veil, I couldn't tell if the neighbors had power or not. Most reasonable folks would be in bed by now anyway. Frustrated, I messaged the guys I was done for the night, then headed to the basement for my old battery bank. As I grabbed it from the stack of boxes, something rustled behind me, just the wind. I told myself, just the storm making the house talk. I hauled the battery upstairs, plugged in a lamp in the living room, and settled on the couch. Some people can sleep through a power outage. I'm not one of them. I need to know the world's still spinning right before I close my eyes. So I pulled up YouTube on my phone and waited. An hour later, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped onto the porch, protected from the rain by the overhang, and looked out at the neighborhood. Across the street, a few houses had lights on. Strange. I checked for outages in my area but found nothing. Back inside, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Power lines down in your area. Expect outages. No company name. No service ID. Just that. I settled back on the couch. More to listen to videos than watch them while the storm raged outside. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable creak of a footstep on the wooden basement stairs. I froze. In 15 years of living here, I'd learned every sound this house makes. That was the third step from the bottom. The one that always complained when you put weight on it. Moving slow and quiet. I crept toward the hallway, phone light creating a small island of visibility in front of me. The basement door stood wide open. I closed it. I know I had. I shined the light down the stairs, but saw nothing. No way in hell was I going down there to check. I closed the door, my mind still not fully processing what this meant. I turned to walk away when heavy footsteps thundered up those stairs, running, not walking, shaking the floor beneath me. Pure instinct took over. I slammed my body against the door just as something hit it from the other side. Hard. No lock. Just me and whatever desperation I could muster against whoever, whatever, was trying to force their way through. They rammed the door again and again, each impact jolting through my bones. When I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911, the assault stopped. Footsteps retreated back down the stairs. I ran to my car, drove across the street, and waited. 10 minutes passed before police arrived. 3 officers searched my house, but found nothing. Whoever it was had slipped out the back door. The most disturbing part? That text about the power outage, it came from a personal phone. Someone had my number. Someone knew enough about me to know I'd check if other houses had power. There was no outage. He'd cut my power himself. The police never found him, never figured out what he wanted. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind picks up, I find myself staring at the basement door, wondering if he's still out there, waiting for another stormy night to come calling. Voices in the woods. Henry and I weren't exactly what you'd call seasoned campers. We'd pitched tents a few times before, but always at those manufactured campgrounds with showers and picnic tables and families grilling hot dogs 20 feet away. The kind of places real outdoorsmen smirk at, but something in us was itching for authenticity. We wanted solitude, a view, the honest-to-God wilderness experience. So we found this spot 3 hours by car, then 4 hours hiking into forest so deep the sunlight had to fight its way to the ground. The kind of place with only a couple grainy pictures online, posted by the 3 or 4 souls brave or stupid enough to venture there before us. The dirt parking area sat at the end of a road that had stopped being maintained during the Bush administration. No other cars, just us and the trees stretching in every direction, breathing secrets to each other in the wind. The trail wasn't much of one anymore. Nature had been steadily reclaiming it, inch by stubborn inch, for years. By the time we reached the campsite mid-afternoon, sweat-soaked and leg-weary, I understood why so few people made the journey. The site itself wasn't much, just a grassy patch atop a small hill with a decent overlook of the endless forest below. No fire ring, no cleared tent pads, nothing to indicate human presence except the flattened grass where someone, maybe months ago, had briefly existed in this place. I finished setting up before Henry, so I wandered over to the edge of the overlook while he wrestled with his tent poles. That's when I saw them. 4, maybe 5 figures moving through the dense trees below, just shadows and fragments, there and gone between branches and leaves. I called Henry over, but by the time he joined me, they'd vanished into the wilderness, probably just hikers, he said with a shrug that didn't quite sell his casual tone. The rest of the day passed easily enough. We talked about nothing important while the sun sank behind the trees, built a small fire and huddled around it like cavemen, pretending we weren't unsettled by how completely, utterly alone we were out here, or thought we were. The voices came when night had fully settled, soft at first, like radio chatter from another room. Multiple voices, back and forth. Not quite words, but definitely human sounds, coming from the darkness beyond our little circle of firelight. "You hear that?" Henry whispered, his face ghostly in the fire's glow. I nodded. We both went still, listening. The voices never got louder or clearer, never moved closer or farther away, just stayed out there in the dark, having a conversation we couldn't quite make out, until they suddenly stopped. Not faded, stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. One set of footsteps replaced the voices, single, deliberate, coming toward us through the underbrush. Henry and I exchanged glances, and I could see my own unease mirrored in his eyes. A man stepped into our firelight, red baseball cap, long, wavy black hair, a smile too wide for his face, like it had been painted on by someone who'd only seen pictures of smiles but never experienced one. "Either of you know where the trail is around here?" he asked, his voice unnaturally cheerful. "I've been looking for a while." I pointed toward the path and said, "Yeah." When he didn't move, I added, "Are the others with you? The ones out there?" His smile faltered for just a heartbeat, so quick I might have imagined it before stretching even wider. "I don't know there were others out here," he said, looking back toward the darkness. "I've just been hiking alone. I would have asked them for directions if I saw them." The lie hung in the air between us, obvious as a gunshot. "Okay," I said, because what else could I say? He kept smiling that wrong smile, then turned and disappeared down the trail. Henry and I sat in silence for a long moment before he spoke. That was not right. For 30 minutes, we talked in hushed voices about what the hell had just happened. Why would someone lie about not being with a group? Who were they? What were they doing out here? The entire time, the forest seemed to press in around us. The darkness between the trees felt alive. Watching, I kept turning to look behind me, searching shadows for movement, Should we just leave? Henry finally asked, his voice small and tense. God bless him for saying what I was thinking. We packed quickly, shouldered our bags, and stomped out the fire. The moment the light died, the forest went dead silent. No crickets, no distant owl calls, nothing. Just as we turned to leave, a single footstep crunched in leaves behind me. We spun around, facing absolute darkness. My hand shook as I fumbled for my flashlight. Clicked it on. 10 feet away stood the same man. Red cap still on his head. He wasn't moving, just staring at us with empty eyes. As my light hit him, that unnaturally wide smile spread across his face again, like a wound opening. I killed the light. We ran. Behind us, multiple sets of footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Some on a trail, some crashing through the woods beside us. They were all around, moving fast, hunting. Gradually, the sounds faded, whether they gave up or we outran them. I'll never know. We reached the car, breathing like drowning men, and peeled out of there before our doors were fully closed. It's been years now. Henry and I have never gone camping again. Sometimes I wake up at night, heart pounding, thinking I hear voices outside my window, not quite clear enough to understand, having conversations I can't quite make out. And sometimes, in my nightmares, I see that too wide smile spreading in the darkness, stretched beyond any face that could hold it. I never turn on the light to check. Some things you're better off not seeing twice. The night visit. Spring break. 2021, that meaningless stretch when college kids pour south like migrating birds, chasing warmth and bad decisions. For me, a 24-year-old junior, it meant something different, a chance to go home, to see family after months away at an out-of-state college. The drive was a 2-day slog through America's forgotten middle, those endless roads where you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. I chose driving over flying every time. Though, something about controlling my own journey. Even if it meant 20 hours behind the wheel. I left Tuesday morning, earlier than planned. The sun was just a promise on the horizon when I pulled out. No real destination in mind except the vague notion of where I'd stop for the night. Just me, the road, and 10 hours of nothing but fields and fence posts for company. Around 8 that evening, my eyes started to burn and my back had fused with the seat. Time to call it. I pulled into a gas station, one of those sad, fluorescent-lit islands in the darkness, and searched my phone for the nearest motel. The map showed one not far away, down a road behind the station, not toward the highway, where life and movement dwelled, but away from it, into darker country. The road was ancient, barely maintained. Sad excuses for streetlights dotted its length, their sickly glow swallowed by the night more than pushing it back. I followed it for about 5 minutes, passing through what someone generous might call a town, just a cluster of buildings huddling together against the darkness. At the end stood the hotel, a relic from a time when people still took Sunday drives. Its empty parking lot seemed to be waiting for customers who'd stopped coming decades ago. Inside, the lights buzzed at half strength, like they were too tired to work properly. The lobby sat empty, no guests, no staff, not even the drone of a television to suggest life. I stood at the counter, the silence pressing against my eardrums. After a minute that stretched like taffy, a woman appeared from a back hallway, startling when she saw me standing there, like I was the ghost. Not her. She hurried over, checked me in with minimal conversation, and gave me a room at the very end of the hall. The room matched the hotel, small, dated, functional enough. I didn't bother unpacking, just collapsed on the sofa, scrolling through my phone until exhaustion pulled me under. The pounding jolted me awake. Someone was hammering on my door, the sound violent in the quiet night. I sat up, disoriented, heart skittering in my chest. The clock on the wall read 11 p.m. I approached the door cautiously and opened it. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. Not a soul in sight. I leaned out, looking for whoever had knocked. But the corridor remained vacant and silent as a tomb. After 30 seconds of bewildered waiting, I retreated back inside. Maybe I dreamed it, or maybe it had been meant for another room, though I hadn't heard any doors open or close. I tried to shake off the unease, took a shower, and went to bed, setting my alarm for 8. Sleep came easy until the pounding returned. I jolted upright in the dark room. The banging continued, insistent, demanding. This time I rushed to the door, where a thin seam of light seeped underneath, the only illumination in the pitch-black room. I swung it open to another empty hallway. Confusion turned to unease. I walked down to the front desk, where the same woman sat, bathed in the same dim light as before, as if she hadn't moved since I checked in. Someone's been knocking on my door. I told her. Did you see anyone? She looked at me with genuine confusion. Then something like concern. You're the only guest staying here tonight, she said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. I forced a smile and thanked her, then walked back to my room, the weight of her words sinking in. The only guest. So, who was knocking? Back in my room. I double-checked all the locks, then lay in bed staring into absolute darkness. After a minute, I reached for my phone on the nightstand, needing its light, its connection to normality. As the screen illuminated, it cast just enough glow to reveal a figure standing in the corner by my bed. My body went cold. Someone was in the room with me. They stood perfectly still, watching from the darkest corner, just standing there, watching. How long had they been there? The whole time I was sleeping? I lunged for the door, fumbling with the locks as adrenaline flooded my system. Behind me came the sound of movement, fast, purposeful footsteps rushing across the floor toward me. I wrenched the door open and sprinted down the hallway, the footsteps pounding closer behind me. The desk woman looked up as I burst into the lobby, her eyes widening as they tracked past me to whatever was following. She grabbed the phone to call 911, but when the man reached the lobby, he bolted for the exit, disappearing into the night. No car. He just ran off into the darkness, swallowed by it. The police investigation was brief and unsatisfying. The hotel had only 2 working cameras, one in the lobby, one outside, neither of which yielded much. The only concrete fact was that the man had slipped into my room while I was at the front desk asking about the knocking. His motive remains a mystery. What did he want? Why that hotel? Why me? Sometimes on empty highways now, I find myself scanning the rearview mirror, looking for headlights that stay too close for too long, and in hotels. No matter how exhausted I am, I check every corner, every shadow, before I turn out the light, because I learned something that night. There are people in this world who knock on doors not to be let in, but to see if you'll leave. People who stand in corners, silent in the dark, watching you sleep, waiting for their moment. And the scariest part is, you'll never know why.